truth is, there's about 5 difficult verses. Difficult Hebrew because they're still poetic, which was the continuation of last class. And then there's a whole list of names, which we can just read through. And then there's another story, chapter 24. So on page 53, very difficult verses over here. Let's try our best. Ve'ele. Got it? Josh, how's your Hebrew? You can read? Not too bad, okay. So we'll do it slowly. You can write in the translation if you want, and keep it to copy for yourself. Ve'ele, and these means what we're about to read now, because sometimes ve'ele can be referred to what we just said. No, this, what we're about to read now, Divrei David ha'achronim. They're the last words of David. That doesn't mean that at the end of this chapter he died. Doesn't mean that. It means the last words which are for future. It means the words of David that we have, what would you call it, for posterity, is that word? I mean, for all generations, you would say the Book of Psalms. The rest is a story about him, right? But actually, chapter 22 was Psalm 18, more or less. This long chapter, which has got 51 verses, right, was really a copy of Psalm 18. It's a copy, we would say, in its original version, meaning in David's personal collection, for the way he said this psalm when he needed to be inspired or to thank God. And then when David published the Book of Psalms, which he probably did towards the end of his life, which was not only all composed by him, there's other authors. Moshe Rabbeinu's Psalms are in there, Asaph, Adam HaRishon, lots of people are in the Psalms of King David. Primarily, it's his, and he put it all together, right? So this chapter, then we said he took this chapter 22 and made it suitable for us, because not everything that would inspire him would inspire us. And more or less, it's the same idea. This is the last of David's words, which really means we would call it Psalm 151. We have 150 psalms, but now we're about to hear the last psalm composed by King David, which isn't in the Book of Psalms, but it's the last will and testament to the Jewish people. Right? He spoke more, and he died in the first chapter of the Book of Kings, and then he said goodbye to his son, whatever. But for us, this is the last words. These are the last words, and he starts off as follows: Ne'um. Ne'um is like a speech. In modern, we say Ne'um is a speech. It's usually a word associated with prophet. Right? Often the prophets Isaiah, they use that word Ne'um in the name of God to speak. David ben Yishai. So speaks, so says David the son of Yishai. Une'um, and so speaks Hagever, that's the man, a man with the word related to strength. Because you can say Aish is also a man, right? This word Gever from the word Gevura, so it means a man of strength. Hukam, who was established, from the word come, to get up, who was lifted up. All means on top of. This is the speech of David ben Yishai, and this is a speech of the strong man who was lifted on top. Mashiach means the anointed, Elokei Yaakov, of the God of Yaakov. So he was anointed by God, the God of the Jewish people. Une'im, and the pleasant. Ne'im is pleasant, like Noam. Darachei Noam, the ways of the Torah are pleasant. Zmirat Yisrael, the singer of Israel. Zmirat, that's what we say on Shabbat, right? Zmirat, to sing. Ne'im, and the pleasant singer of Israel. So it looks like that David is describing the 4 stages of his life, which are all described in the Book of Psalms and are all inspired by these stages of his life. Inspired what's in Psalms. Okay, so the first stage of his life, when he was just simple David, he was known as David ben Yishai. That's what he was. He wasn't king. He wasn't nothing. He was just David, and he was a shepherd. That was the first stage of his life. When he was lonely, he was on his own. He was rejected. Even his family rejected him. Didn't want anything to do with him. They thought he was a bastard, etc. Like we've discussed. That's the first stage of David's life. The next stage was after he, from nowhere, became an international hero because he killed Goliath. Right, and saved the Jewish people from the Philistines. At that point, he was elevated. He showed his gevura. Hukam, then he was elevated to be an officer in Shaul's army. He still wasn't king yet, but he went from rags to riches overnight. Okay, from being an unknown shepherd, right, who was rejected by his own brothers, right, even his father, right, who didn't know that he was his father, remember, right? And then he becomes this superhero of the Jewish people. And then Mashiach Elokei Yaakov then became anointed, right, because he became king. Okay? And then later on in life, he composed psalms, so he became the sweet singer of Israel. I suppose when he retired, we talked that his officers told him he shouldn't come to battle anymore, he should stay at home because it's safer there, and we don't want him to come and fight. So from that point on, maybe that was when he published and he became the sweet Ne'im Zemirot. Okay? So all of these stages in his life contributed to his great contribution to the Jewish people and to the world, which is the Book of Psalms. Then he continues. Now there's also 4 references over here. I'm not sure how to relate them, but they probably are. I mean, the 4th stage of his life are probably related to these 4 expressions. I haven't worked out how. Ruach Hashem diber bi. The Spirit of God spoke in me. Means my words were, influenced by the Spirit, what we call it Ruach HaKodesh. Okay? They're not prophecy, as if you actually hear God speaking to you, but he was inspired through the Spirit of God. Umilasai al l'shayni. And God's words, milah is a word, right? And umilato, and his word, meaning the word of God, al l'shayni is on my tongue. That sounds like a slightly different clarity in the word of God. The first one was the Spirit of God spoke in me, not spoke to me. Right? It spoke. I could like feel inspiration from God, but God's words were actually on my tongue. Amar Elokei Yisrael li, and the God of Israel said to me. So that sounds like an even more clear prophecy. Not only it was on my tongue, his words were on my tongue, but I actually heard God speak to me. Diber Sur Yisrael, the Rock of Israel spoke. So that's a 4th expression, almost the same as the first one. And the first one's describing God as Elokei Yisrael, the God of Israel. The second one's describing God as the Rock of Israel. The Rock of Israel is something which you can rely upon, something which is permanent, always there, and safe, and provides you protection. The first one said Omar, the second one said Diber. That's, again, wants to say, wants to speak. I don't really know the difference, but this is the message. So the 4 stages of David's life, and the 4 different clarities in the Word of God, which may have been reflected in those different stages, as he became more and more connected with God, God's Word became clear to him. And this is the message to him. From now on is the message. Moshel ba'adam, he who rules man. Moshel is a ruler. Ba'adam, man, means you are to be a ruler. I want you to rule over man, over the Jewish people specifically, over to mankind in general. Tzaddik. The first thing you have to be is a tzaddik. Not just a warrior, which he was, but to be a good ruler, you have to be a tzaddik, a person who is personally involved. Well, it depends what the word tzaddik means. We often use the word tzaddik to mean a guy who's a big tzaddik, right? But it could mean a person who's involved in tzedek, which is righteous, what's right, doing what's right, not doing what's wrong. Because the next one says, Moshel, you want to be a ruler, you have to be Yiras Elokim, God-fearer. So you need 2 things. You need to be a person who is personal life is a fear of God, and a person who's involved in doing what's right, in tzedakah v'chesed. And that's what I require. Obviously you need other things. You need to be a good politician, you need to be a warrior, and you need to be able to give good speeches and all that sort of stuff like all other kings can do. But a Jewish king who's going to rule over people has to set a good example. That's what Hashem says I want from you. Okay. Now, the next 3 pesukim, 4 pesukim, Dalet Hey Vav Zayin, are very, very obscure. What they are, what's it trying to do? It's contrasting 2 things. The question is, what is it contrasting? So the version that I adopted, of what I've seen in the commentaries, is he's trying to contrast his reign as king with his family, of how God said it will be, and the reigns of other Jewish kings. I know in history there were other Jewish kings who were established. After David died, his son Shlomo became king. After Shlomo died, there was a split in the country between Yerovam between Rechavam, who was Shlomo's son, and Yerovam, who was an officer in the army, and he broke away and they made a separate kingdom in the north. So that was the first example of a non-Davidic dynasty. Okay? And that the split lasted till the destruction of the temple. Well, sort of. The northern kingdom lasted about 300 years, and the southern kingdom lasted about 400 years, approximately, just give or take 50 years, right? The northern kingdom was taken into exile by the Assyrians, okay, which, not Syrians, Assyrians from Ashur. They were the world empire at the time, and then they were defeated by the Babylonians, and the Babylonians exiled the Jews of the southern kingdom with the destruction of the temple on Tisha B'Av. Okay? Now, that was so we had for hundreds of years two separate kingdoms, King David's kingdom and the northern kingdom. Then during the second temple period, we also had a Jewish kingdom, which was the Maccabees, the Hashmonaim, who also ruled for, well, the way the Rambam describes it, approximately 200 years. Although a lot of that was really Roman rule, and there were puppet kings like Herod and that sort of thing, Agrippa. So, but that's the way it's described as the Hashmonaim dynasty lasted for about 200 years. So we have, it seems to me, that David is contrasting his dynasty with the other Jewish dynasties and saying as follows. Yeah. This is what God is telling me. If you rule in man, this is God's saying, if you rule in man with Tzedek and Yiras Elohim, then this is how your dynasty will be, as follows. Ka'ar boker, like the light of the morning, Yizrach Shomesh, the sun will shine. Now, that could be saying as follows. The first light is not sunrise, right? The first light in the morning is what we call dawn, which is a long time, an hour and a quarter before sunrise. It's saying that your dynasty will be so bright and so powerful that at dawn it will shine like sunrise. That doesn't mean to say physically the sun is bright. No, it doesn't mean that. It means David's dynasty doesn't have to be little by little. Get a little bit, like a day does. The day gets one tiny bit of crack of dawn, you see a little bit of light, and gradually gets brighter and brighter and brighter until the sun rises in all its glory. Okay, but it's fixed. Why? He's saying, no. Yours, Yisrach HaShemesh, your sun will shine at dawn. Right? That means David, right? David's well, as soon as he became king, it was a whole dynasty. It didn't take years for him to come. Well, it could have been, right? Right? You see, the reason why I'm hesitant is because some say this is describing Mashiach. It's not describing David, right? And it's really contrasting David with Mashiach, right? But some read it like that. And David's saying, mine wasn't so successful, my reign, but Mashiach will be much greater. Okay? I don't know. I've heard that. I feel that David is describing what his kingdom could have been, which may be true, since it wasn't like that, so Mashiach will be like that. But he's not contrasting, he's contrasting his kingdom, how it could have been if he'd been everything fine and glorious, as opposed to the other Jewish dynasties. So, the morning sunlight will shine at dawn. Boker, a morning, lo avos. Now, avos is with an ayin, not with an aleph. Avos with an ayin means a cloud. Be'av ha'anan is a cloud, it means a cloud. It means a cloudless morning. Clouds sort of ruin clouds are important, don't get me wrong, right? You need clouds, you need rain. But if you're looking for a beautiful sunrise, a beautiful morning, you don't want the clouds to mess it up, right? So it's clear without any clouds in the way. This is how it's been described. Minoiga, now noiga we said yesterday, besides being another word for Venus, right, means the shine. The shine, if you picture this morning where the sunrise sort of sunrises at dawn. So you've got this magnificent sun without any clouds. The shine is the shine of Mimotar Desher Me'aretz. From the rain, grass on the ground. Now, what does all that mean? That could mean lots of things. That's the beauty of poetry. You can read so many different things into it, right? I get it meaning you're picturing a cloudless sky, the sun shining on the grass which has just rained on it. You get it? So there's like grass is wet, from the rain, but there's no clouds anymore. So you get that, and the sun's shining on the grass. That's the picture. That's the glorious dynasty that David HaMelech is picturing. Or God is picturing for David, and telling this is how it could be. If you'll be a righteous king, good king, it doesn't have to be anything in the way, anything bad. It can be beautiful, glorious, without any problems. Now, Kiloi came basi, for not thus was my house, email with God. So, what does it mean? So again, if he's contrasting himself to other kings, he might be trying to contrast himself with Shaul. Shaul HaMelech, who was the king before him, right? His kingdom was not that glorious. And he himself made mistakes, and he lost his kingdom, and there was, you couldn't describe it, so you say, Loichem Basi, he's not saying my house was not glorious. He's saying it wasn't with things in the way. That means it wasn't. My house was not with the clouds that I was. It's confusing. It means. Here's my problem. He's saying, describing a cloudless sky and saying mine was not like that.
It's a kilochen beiti.
My house was with clouds or was without clouds?
No, without clouds.
But that's not what it says. Basically, my house was not like that.
So maybe you say
my house was also without clouds. Like I'm describing, that's what mine was like. My house was like that, even though it's not what he's just said. The reason why I think, like guys, ki bris olam samli, because he, God, because it says with God, ki bris olam, a permanent covenant, samli, he placed for me. Arucha, all sorted out. Arucha doesn't mean long, that's with an aleph. That means sorted out, like Shulchan Aruch.
Yeah.
Shulchan means a laid table. It was all sorted out. Bakal, with everything. Ushmura, and guarded. It means God made a covenant with me, a permanent covenant with me. All sorted out and guarded. Kichol yish'i, for all my salvations. V'chol chefetz, and all my desires. But it doesn't say what about them. So Aish says you have to add in, God will provide. God wants to be arranged, all my needs, all my desires, all my successes have all been arranged by God in this covenant with me. Well, if everything is glorious, then why did he say my house was not like that? At the beginning of the post. Right? So there's two ways out of it. Either saying he's not talking about himself, he's talking about Mashiach. He's saying, mine was not like that, because I messed up. Right? Shiur, that's the permanent covenant that will come in the future. Mm-hmm. That's all waiting and all set up, and there's no reason why that should be messed up. Like I messed up, and I was not so successful. So that's one way to read it. Or he's contrasting himself with Shaul and saying Shaul was problematic, but mine won't be like that, and mine didn't need to be like that. But in truth, David did have problems. He did mess up. It wasn't glorious, right? So that's why I'm not sure how to read this. God is saying it could have been glorious, but in the end, David messed up, and he got into problems, he got into attacks, and he got into civil wars, and certainly can't describe David's reign as glorious, correct? No, he has a lot of, didn't have so much nachas from his children, and, his daughter gets raped, and his son gets killed, and the other son rebels against him, right? And he gets into wars with the Philistines, and this one and that one, like, so, and he didn't build a temple, so it's hard to see how, God could have said it could have been great. And that's what he's saying. It could have been great. But in the end, he says, Loichem Basi, it didn't actually work out because I made mistakes. But we still have a chance to get it back because God's made a permanent covenant. And therefore it's not like Shaul's reign that after a few years became the whole dynasty broke up. Mine's going to go on forever. So we still have a chance to get that back sometime in the future. This beautiful picture of our glorious kingdom, we never actually had it then, but we still have a chance to get it back in the future. God made a permanent covenant with me so we can get it back. Okay. Now, what are these last three words? Ki lo yatzmiach, for it will not grow. Now that's really weird. You're just describing this beautiful picture, right, of the sunrise and the grass and the rain on the grass, and saying that I've got this permanent covenant with God, and it's all arranged and guarded, and God's got it all ready for me, and it will not grow. So some read it as if it's a question. Will it not grow? Will it not grow?
But wouldn't there be like a hay then?
Yeah, there should be, and there's other ways to say that. So Rashi doesn't read like that. Rashi says that these last three words are actually part of the contrast to the other dynasties. It means mine's permanent, right? But now let's start talking about the others. The answer is no. That means there'll be no real opposition to mine. The other threats are not real threats because they're not permanent. They won't grow. They'll be temporary. Maybe temporary can be 300 years, right? But in the end, I will outlast them. The Davidic dynasty will outlast everybody else, and that's why in the end it will be a descendant from King David who will come back. Not someone from the northern kingdom, not someone from the Maccabees. It will be a descendant. That's what he's saying.
So he's saying it's unmatched to my kingdom.
Yes, correct. He's contrasting and he's saying they won't outgrow me. Ki lo yatzmiach. They'll be there. Someach means to grow, right? They'll be there, but they won't grow. My kingdom is growing and lasting. Now, his king also came to a stop temporarily, but we're just waiting for it to come back. It will come back. King David is predicting over here. And now he's describing the other kingdoms. After having said that they won't be a threat, a real permanent threat, because they won't grow, they'll exist but not grow properly. Or beliyah, now that's the word we've had a lot, means without conscience. It means the other kingdom, right, are sort of rebellious kingdoms. Having rebelled against God, and they were idol worshippers most of the time. The northern kingdom, right from their onset, right, had pagan temples, which they used for a different type of Judaism, which was not authentic. And they never really gave up. And that's eventually they went into exile. So there we call them biliyah, they're without a yoke, without responsibility. Kikoitz, they're like a thorn. So David is comparing the northern kingdom, if this is the way to read it, right, like a thorn. In what way are they like thorns? So David makes several comparisons. The northern kingdom, which he's saying is going to be a challenge to his, but not really grow, in several points. The first one is munad kulahem. It's like a foreign language, right? Munad is from the word nod. Nod doesn't mean what you do when you no. Nod means to go. Means to.
Noddy.
No, the land of Nod. Who lived in the land of Nod?
Nim what? No. I mean, not Nimrod.
Remember the first murder in history?
Abel and Cain.
Correct. Cain killed his brother Abel. And then God sent him into exile.
He sent him to
He
Nod?
went into the land of Nod. Why the land of Nod? Because Nod in Hebrew means to be pushed away. Right? Where he wouldn't have a permanent place. And he said to him, Na vanad tiyeh ba'aretz. You will be a person who moves around. Lanua means to move around. He didn't have any permanent. He was like travel, like the ancient farmers. They would go one place, after next season go to the next one. He never had any permanent place, right? That's why the word nida, same word. One is a nida. The word nida means she moves out to be in a separate quarters, because everything she touches becomes tameh. So if you're a kohen, right, or you want to eat sacrifices, you can't have your nida wife cooking in the kitchen. She has to go into the nida kitchen where she'll cook for herself. Right? And somebody else will have to cook for you, or you have to cook your own food. Your other wife, well, then she's also a nida, right? That's the problem, right? No, you have to cook for yourself. You don't have to cook for yourself. Okay, the word nida means actually to be moved away. She moves out of your bed. Understand? There's a moving away. So munad, now kulahem, it's two words together. Kol heim. They all moved around. Meaning there's no permanence to the northern kingdom. Now, move around means in a sense like this. They didn't physically move from one place to another. Right? The northern kingdom was the northern kingdom, right? Or the 10 tribes. But the dynasties moved around. For one dynasty lasted 2 generations, and then they were wiped out by the next guy. Then they came along. King David was never like that. Went on for generation after another, 10, 15 generations. From the time of King David to the time of Shaul HaMelech, who was at the time of the destruction of the first temple. But the other kingdom in the north was like moved around. First it was from the capital was the tribe of Yisachar, and then it was the king from here. And the whole time, you'll see, we'll learn there, we'll get a chance to learn Malachim, right? You'll see how the longest dynasty was 4 generations. The dynasty of Omri. But most people were 1, some people lasted a week, Some people lasted 3 months. Some people lasted 2 generations. It was like the whole time being changed. That's what he's saying. They're moving around. Kiloi biyad yikachu. Now, and you can't take them in your hand. Now he's comparing to thorns. Just like thorns get swept around from place to place, they don't have any permanent thorns, right? They don't plant in the ground and become trees. They're just a mess, right? They just get swept up by the street, right? So street sweepers, right? The first point is they have no permanence, point number 1. Number 2 is you can't hold them in your hand. Because if you hold the thorns in your hand, you get prickled, right? So what does that mean? So it probably means that you couldn't really make the kings, the righteous kings of the southern dynasty, right, couldn't make partnerships with them, even though they were both Jewish. But the northern people were pagans, the kings were David HaMelech, and therefore they couldn't really go and make any alliances. And when they did make alliances, the prophet came and told them off for making alliances with the Rishonim, evil people in the north. So kiloi, you can't get hold of your hand just like thorns. If you get hold of them, you get pricks. The same thing. If you make alliances with them, you'll be in trouble. Ish yiga b'hem, and a man who wants to touch them, yimale barzel, will have to fill with iron.
Fill with iron.
That's what it says. Yimale will fill barzel, iron. So it could mean if you want to pick up the thorns, you have to wear protective clothing. That's the only way if you do want to touch them. You have to be very careful when you deal with them. Keep them at a distance. The eitz chanis, or the wood of a spear.
Maybe it's like ish gabahem yemale barzel, like he will get filled with iron, meaning the sword. Sword is made of iron.
Yes, but you don't get filled with iron when you touch thorns. It says they're like thorns, right? You usually think if you you could get splinters, right?
Maybe it's
when you
the
touch
comparison.
thorns.
It's like when you touch thorns, you're getting cut.
Yeah, but, yes,
Metal,
correct. I
you're
hear, but barrels I hear, but it's not iron is the wrong word to use. You should say you get thorn. You get thorns when you touch. You get splinter.
Yeah.
That would be nice, but splinters aren't. You can get metal splinters, but not from thorns. You can't. Right? So it's a bit of a strange metal. That's why I read it. It means if you do want to touch the ish yigaben, if you want to touch them, you first of all have to fill your hands with like iron gloves, or there's another way. Eitz chanis, which means like a wood of a spear. Means if you're far enough away, you can use a long stick to push them around too. So if you keep your distance from them, you can have some type of relationship from a distance. And we've actually seen there were occasions where they did have relations between the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom. Sometimes the prophet was very upset about it, and sometimes he was okay with it, depending on how bad they were, what sort of relationship was it? Was it a business relationship? Was it a war relationship? Helping them in war. So sometimes it was okay. We'll see Malachim. That could be a very subtle point of how you deal with Rishonim. But these are Jews in the northern kingdom, and they're in trouble. So we're going to help them. You're not going to help them. Because on the other hand, you have to be careful because you'll come back all pagans because they'll influence you, which is a very important message of how today we deal with our uneducated brethren around the world. So we want to make them better, but sometimes they'll influence you more than they'll influence them. Depends the way you mix with them, or you don't go to a disco unless you know how to do it. You ever heard of the disco rabbi? Ever heard of the disco rabbi? Never heard of him?
Yeah.
Rabbi from Migdal Emek, right, Grossman. So he grew up in Meir Sharim, and he became the Rabbi Migdal Emek, which was a non-religious area, but not anti-religious, but not religious in the north. And now he's an old man, but he was famous. He was the disco rabbi. He used to go to the disco, and they would stop the music. He would say the Vater and then leave. But that's the way he changed the whole area. He's got schools, boys' schools, girls' schools, and orphanages. And he has a terrific. So yeah, you do have to have a connection with these people, otherwise you're never going to influence them. But you have to know how to do it, right? He'd probably go in there dressed with his shtreimel, because he was from Meir Sharim. He would come in his Shabbos clothes, and out of their respect for the rabbi, they would stop the music, and he would say some words of chizuk, and then he would leave, and they would carry on. But then they would come to hear his classes, whatever, and eventually, Rabbi Grossman, Rabbi Yisrael Grossman, worth checking him out. I saw him. He's a very, very. I think he got the Israel Prize once from the president because of his work, because he worked with disadvantaged youth and great stuff from Meir Sharim. Okay, so that's the saying over here. So the same thing is over here. We have this northern pagan kingdom, pagan Jews, you understand? So how to relate to them? And this is something which we'll learn in Malachim, how the kings did or rightly or wrongly relate to them. But David's saying, they're really bad guys, they're like thorns, you can't really touch them. If you do, you're going to get into trouble. But if you want to deal with them, you have to protect yourself, either with metal gloves or with a stick of a spear. Aish, and in fire, saraf yisarfu, they will surely be burnt. Bashaves. Now that doesn't mean on Shabbos, but it might mean in account of Shabbos. It means what do you do with thorns? You burn them, right? And that's really what needs to be done to the Northern Kingdom too, which is really what happened. I mean, they weren't burnt physically, but they were destroyed, sent out into exile, and on many occasions. That's why it says saruf yisarfu, in more than once.
So burnt on in Shabbos.
Well, in Shabbos could mean because they didn't keep Shabbos.
Doesn't Shevet mean tribe though?
No, that's with a test.
Oh.
Shevet with a tribe means a test.
Oh.
Sorry, Shevet with a test is a tribe. This is the same word as Shabbos, which is the same word as Shabbos. But it might mean because they're really doing nothing. When you have a shvita is when you have a strike. Go on strike. Okay? So and which is what you do on Shabbos, right? You don't go to work. Okay? But it's not a strike, but it's the same word. So that could be said. The reason why they need to be burned is because they're not actually doing anything productive. They're just doing nothing. And that's why they need to be got rid of, because they're doing nothing. But they got rid of in stages. First 3 tribes, then more tribes, in 3 different stages. That could be why the Navi, David is describing it as a double expression. Okay, what you take out of that, we'll say, like it's really as we said, it's really Psalm 150. It's David's last words.
150 or 151?
151, sorry, right? And he is describing why God picked him and what God expected of him and how glorious his kingdom could have been. Whether it actually was like that is a good question, right? But still, there's another chance because his kingdom is permanent in a sense that it's never going to be taken by anybody else. And even those who did come temporarily were really bad behaved, and that's why they were all completely destroyed. Even the Maccabees, who started off as being great tzaddikim, who saved Judaism from total obliteration, eventually went the same way as everybody else, and they were destroyed by the Romans. And that's because they didn't behave properly. Okay, all right. Now, I want to give this list to you. It might help, I hope it does. This is a list of David's warriors. It looks like the end of the week. You join this film 5 minutes before it ends. Okay? These last 3 chapters are just I didn't expect so many people to.
It's 37.
Right, so let's see what it says. These are the names of the warriors, Gibor, Asher David, who were part of David's army. Now, it could be right from the beginning, when David was an outlaw. These people joined him, but probably the stories were complete when he took over the kingdom, became king, first of all in Hebron for 7.5 years, later on in Yerushalayim over the whole kingdom. And these are his major generals. Why you need to know this? I don't know. I mean, you're never going to meet any of these people, so it's not like, I saw you in... No, but it makes it real, that's the point. You know?
I have an idea about names.
Yeah.
And he mentioned it on Thursday, so I thought about it for Shabbos. And also the names in the Torah that's mentioned is like Asav and Asav's whole. So.
Oh, the names of the kings.
No.
Asav's kings.
Oh,
The list of Asav. Oh, it said Asav generals as well. Okay, go on.
And I think it's going to be one of 2 reasons, right? Because one thing that we learn about names is that, like, part of the soul can be passed down through names. So either there could be warriors, like literally David's warriors, and they needed to go through the generations. A bit of their soul comes back to help the generations throughout time, and then Asav's army or the kings of that would be coming back because their soul needs redeeming throughout time. And that's why I need to remember.
Yeah, do you have to have the same name in order to do this? It means the guy is coming back as somebody else?
Well, at least a part
name?
of them. A part of them needs redeeming. I mean, this is what Sephardi have the thing going down. They pass the name. Like they have the family name going down, and it's like the whole thing. There's so much in a name, and it's like.
So if you want your son to be to save the Jewish people, you should give him one of the names of these David's.
Well, I mean, that's what they do with like Moshe.
Okay.
And,
All right, let's see the names. All right.
Yeah.
So these are the list of them. It's not so easy how you get the number, right? Does it say? I didn't say how many there. We'll see. At the end, it says 37. I think that's what it says at the end. We'll have to see how it works out. So the first one is as follows: Yoshev, he who sits, Basheves. Interesting, the same word, right before. Sheves is a place where you sit. But it's Sheves Tachkamayni. It's not just Sheves doing nothing. It's Tachkamayni. Now the root of the word Tachkamayni clearly is the word Chacham. Okay? So it probably means that this guy used to sit. He was like he wasn't the guy who actually did the fighting, but he was a strategist. Mm-hmm. He was the one who understood how battles have to be fought. He was in the room there. I don't know, show you a picture of
in the war room.
In the war room, right? So he's the brains behind it. Okay, he's not the head of the army. He's the brains behind the tactics.
He's the one mapping it all.
Yeah, Tachkamayni. Rosh Hashalishi. He's the head. Now, Shalishi means got something to do with three. You would say he's the head of the triumvirate. Triumvirate was just a word that the way the Romans governed the world. They had like three generals, and Pompey was one of them, right? And
Caesar and Crassus.
okay, who? Caesar and?
Caesar, Crassus, and Pompey were the first triumvirate.
Okay, so they together. So it looks like he had underneath him a triumvirate. He was like the guy in the war room. Underneath him was a triumvirate. Who was he? Adino Ha'etzni. That was his name? Adino Ha'etzni. Now, something you know about him. Al Shmeina Neos Chalal. He was over 800 slain. Chalal is a person who's slain, dead body. Chalal. The Pam Echas, in one go. Means there was some battle which he was famous for that he killed 800 people in one battle. Okay, that's why. So he was a brave, strong guy. Okay, but that's just one story we know about this guy called Adino Etzni. But he was the brains behind David's army. Okay, next one. Acharav, under him. Now, under him, I think we're going to do the triumvirate, whatever. These three who were underneath the brains. Who were they? Elazar ben Dodo. Ben. Now it's funny. Achochi. Now, Ben Dodo could mean the son of his uncle. Now, you can't be the son of your uncle, you have to be the son of your father, right? But it could be his father was called Dodo, but his grandfather was called Achochi. Could be, right? Because some of these do have fathers and grandfathers listed, right? Or it could be he was the son of the uncle of Adina or Etzli, of the previous person.
Wouldn't it be his cousin if it says Ben Dodo?
But whose cousin was he? Of the previous guy.
The top.
Yeah, could be, right, exactly. It would mean he was the son of the uncle of, so he was a cousin of the first guy. Could be, right. So either his father was called Dodo, right, and his grandfather was called Achochi, or he was a cousin of Adinoet. Okay. Bishlosha HaGiborim, he was one of the three warriors, Im David, with David, B'chorfam, Baplishtim, when they did something against the Philistines. Now this word charaf, right, is used when Goliath curses out the Jews. So every day Goliath used to face the Jewish army and curse God and tease them, taunt them. You guys have got God on your side, you great God who saved you from Pharaoh, well, come and attack me. That's called to Mecharef. So it looks like at one occasion they did this to the Philistines.
Wait, what Karaf is like blasphemy, or is it?
Yes, right. It's like blasphemy, right? So at some point, David and his friends taunted the Philistines, right? To say, oh, come on, Philistines, let's see if we can start with us, okay? Uncircumcised jerks, whatever, right? Okay? So at some point, David and his friend, now I don't know what point in David's life this happened, whether he was king, whether he was an outlaw, we don't know. But these three were with him. And then they became the three top generals in David's army, okay, who were underneath Adino Ha'etz. So the first one was Elazar ben Dodo ben Achochi. He was amongst the three warriors in David who were with David b'Charfam b'Plishtim when they taunted the Philistines. Ne'esfu sham ramilchama.
They were under who?
Well, they were underneath Adino Ha'etzni.
But he's number one.
No, but he's the head of the three. I don't think it means number one of the three. That means the head on top of the three.
Okay.
I think that will help us for numbers. Okay? So these Philistines had gathered to war. Ne'es Fusham, they had gathered there, wherever it was. La Milchama, the Philistines. Vayalu Ish Yisrael, and the men of Israel went up, means they ran away. And there were left these three with David. David and these three. And this Elazar ben Dodo was one of these three. Okay? So it seems that was David and these three people. Who, this Elazar ben Dodo, he got up on his own, Vayach Baplishtim, and he struck the Philistines, Ad ki yog yodai, until his hand was tired. He just kept hitting the Philistines until he was too tired. Tidbak yodoi el hacheret, and his hand was stuck to the sword. And that literally means stuck, but he didn't leave go. Yes, Hashem Teshua Gedola, and God made a great salvation by him who on that day. The Ha'am and the people who'd run away. It sounds like they taunted the Philistines, and the Philistines suddenly got mad with them, right? Because they had enough, their patience had run out, and they started to chase the Jews who ran all away, and the only ones who remained were David and these three people, and the one who saved the day was Elazar ben Dodo. But the people, Yashuvu, they came back, Acharov, after him, means after he had chased the Philistines, Ach lefashet, only to strip. Means to, lehit pashet means to get undressed, lefashet means to get somebody else undressed. Means they came to strip the dead Philistines of their weapons and whatever they were wearing to take as booty. So the people ran away and they came back after the war was finished. And that war was basically fought only by this one fellow, Elazar ben Dodo. He was the hero in that war. Okay, so he's number 2 in the list. I think if we've got the list, see he's number 2 in the list?
Yeah.
Okay, so he's number 1 of those 3. Let's find out who the other 2 of those 3 are.
Why, we already have Adini Atzini, we did.
Oh, they're counting. I've counted here as number 1 of the 3.
No,
I see. Okay, all right.
You said it were-
No, it's like you said it. He's not. He's the head of the 3. So we're counting. This. I know there's lots of different ways to get the numbers. So Adino X is number 1 of the 3. After him is Elazar. He's number 2, and then number 3 of those 3 is who?
Shema ben Agag Harari.
He's next one. The Acharav, Shama ben Ogei Harori. Because that's his name. What do we know about him? Vayaosfu Pelishtim Lachayo. And the Philistines gathered together Lachayo. Now, Chayo means a wild animal. So it probably means like wild animals.
Doesn't
Means
it?
the Philistines were ferocious on that day.
Wouldn't there be a cup?
Yes, I agree. Now, Tehisham, and there was there, Chelkas Asada, a section of a field. Melea Adashim, full of lentils. I know why that fact is important, but it looks like the Philistines came to steal the lentils. It was a lentil field.
Hummus.
Right? Well, you say?
Hummus.
Yeah. The Ha'amnos and the people fled. Again, the same sort of story. The people ran away because the Pelishtim came, and so these great warriors came to save the day. By Yisyat save, and he stood erect. That's who's this? Shammah, who's number 3 of this triumvirate.
Shema.
B'toich hachelka, in the middle of the field. He didn't run away. He stayed there. Hayatzileha, and he saved it. How did he save it? Vayaches haPelishtim, and he struck the Philistines. Yas Hashem Teshua Gedola, and God made a great salvation. Okay, so those are the first 3: Adina Etzni, Elazar ben Dodo, and the last one was Shama ben Ogei. And each of them, it says something specific about him. One was the 800 things. One was the guy who killed his hand stuck to the sword, and the other one was save the lentil field. Good. All right. But yeah, now there's another story about the next 3, right? 4, 5, and 6. Okay. Who are they? Vayeldu shloisha mei hashloshim. Rosh. Now we don't know anything. The word shloshim means 30. Soon we're going to find out there are 30 generals. That's from number 7 all the way down to 36, right? That's 30.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to get to them soon. But these 3 we're about to talk about now are the leaders of these people, right? So these 3 are like we said, the brains behind everything, right? The head of that is Adino Etzni. These are the 3 major generals of the army, and under them are 30 junior generals.
33.
How many do you have over here? I think it's from 7 to 36, that's 30. Then we've got one more we have to add up. We'll talk about that in a second. Yeah? 4, we're talking about 4, 5, and 6 now. That's what we're talking about now. Vayerudu shloisha mei hashloshim rosh. Means, and they went down 3 who were the head of the 30 that we're about to learn about soon. We haven't mentioned the 30 yet, but we're going to learn about them in a minute. They're 3 heads, not the top 3 of the 30, but the 3 who are in charge of them. Vayavo el katzir. They came to the harvest. El David, to David. El Ma'arat Adulam, to the cave of Adulam. Now this was a long time before David became king. This was when David was an outlaw and he was running away from Shaul, his father-in-law. And he went Originally he went to the Philistines and then chased him away, and then he went to a cave, and his family came and joined him in this cave, a big cave near Beit Shemesh called Ma'arat Adullam. So these three, who were about to learn, 4, 5, and 6, they came to this cave. The Chayas Pelishtim and the wild beasts of Philistines. It doesn't mean the animals of it means describing the Philistines as wild beasts, right? Chayne is camping be'emek Refaim. Okay? But David Oz Bamatsuda. At that time, Oz means then, Bamatsuda, he was in a fortress. Which fortress? Doesn't say. But these three had joined David in the cave, but he's not in a cave anymore, he's now in a fortress. Somehow or other he's moved. They joined him in the harvest season in the cave. The Philistines were in Emek Rephaim, which is actually not so far from here. There's actually a street called Emek Rephaim, which goes out of Jaffa Street down towards
Mamila?
in that direction, yeah. That's called Emek Rephaim. So David's in a fortress. So what's the cave of Adullam got to do with it? Could be that's where they joined him originally. These three joined David when he was the cave of Adullam. Fine, that's where they joined him. And now there's a story which is when the Philistines are in Emek Rephaim and David's in the fortress, which could have been years later. Umatzav Pelishtim, the Philistine sentry, means their major garrison where their soldiers were, where was it? Beit Lechem was in Beit Lechem. So the Philistines he was fighting were in Emek Rephaim, but their garrison was in Beit Lechem. You'll see why that's important. Vayisaveh David, and David desired, like the word ta'ava. The Torah says you shall not covet, you mustn't want other people's things. It says lo titaveh. David wanted, what did he want? We'll see in a second. This is what he said. Mi yashkeni mayim, who will give me water to drink? So he was thirsty. David was terribly thirsty, and he longed for a nice, cool drink of water. So, in his position as general of this group, or maybe king by this time. Okay? Again, I said before, the point of the cave was when these people joined him. It's not when this story is taking place. So Kubi David was king at the time. And he said, I'd love a cold Coke. Right? What could I do? What would I do for a cold Coke? So what did he say? He knows he didn't have Coke, but he did have cold water. He remembered from back where there was really delicious cold water, which was where? Mi yashkeni mayim mi bor, from the well or the pit, Beis Lechem, which is in Beis Lechem. Now David wasn't in Beis Lechem. He was in the fortress in Yerushalayim. The Philistines that he was fighting were in Emek Rephaim, which is around there somewhere, right? And he says, if I don't get a drink from Beis Lechem, which is like 2 hours walk away from here, okay? But the king said it, so someone's going to do it, right? He didn't. I don't think he meant it seriously. But that, as probably the bor in Beis Lechem was in his youth, that was where he got a nice cool drink of water from, because that was where he lived. That was from Beis Lechem, right? So he was just like, if you could from that, like I said, the cold Coke from the cooler. We're actually in the Judean desert somewhere. So there's no way you can get a cold Coke from the cooler because we're in the Judean desert. But he's got soldiers, right? And soldiers will do anything for their general, right? So that's what they did. So when he did this, these three warriors we're about to mention, they broke through enemy lines because they're going to Beis Lechem where the Philistine garrison is, just to get David a cool drink of water from the well in Beis Lechem. So Vayivka Bokeya means to break something, like you smash through a tree, a plank of wood, right? To make it for firewood, you Bokeya. Vayivku, and they broke the three mighty men we're about to mention, to the Philistine camp, and they drew water, Mibor Beis Lechem, from the well or the spring in Beis Lechem, Ashebashah, which is by the I forgot to translate that at the end of Pasuk 50, which is by the gate. Don't tell them exactly where it is.
Gate, Shiur,
Sha'ar. No, which one are you reading? But Yishavu, and they drew Mayim, water, Mibor, from the well, Beis Lechem, which is in Beis Lechem, Ashebashah, which is by the gate, or by the gate of Beis Lechem. Like Yisu, and they lifted it up. Ayaviu, and they brought it El David. They brought it to David. I'm sure it didn't stay cold all the time. They put it in a thermos flask. How do they keep it cold? No, it doesn't say it was cold, but it was sweet. That was what David liked, the water from the well in Bethlehem, and reminded him of his youth. But then, he didn't agree to drink that.
What?
I'm going to drink water that someone risked his life to get. And that's like a waste. You know, I don't think David, again, don't really expect someone to do it. He was just like, reminiscing and dreaming about this water. He'd love to get some of the water, but someone risked their lives to get it. David felt it had to be used for a more pure purpose. He wasn't going to drink it. What did he do? Yasech oisam Hashem, and he poured them as a libation to God. He made it into a sacrifice. Means he made an altar. See, in those days it was okay. There was no temple in those days. You could make your own altar. And he poured the water on an altar as a sacrifice to God. Someone who's risked his life to do this, it's a pity to waste it on a drink. You know, I can drink some other water. It wasn't that there was no water around. He just was thinking about that water. So, he said, Chalilali, Hashem, God forbid may associate that I would do this. What you expect me to just to drink it. Hadam Hanashim. That's a question. The blood of the men who went at the risk of their lives. Right? Ben Nafshosam means risking their lives. It means, should I just drink? That's what it means. Should I just drink the water it's like drinking the blood of the men who risked their lives. And he didn't agree to drink it. Well, I said that already past the previous pasuk. Okay. That's the story of these three mighty men who are about to, we don't know who they are yet. Right? They're not the first three mentioned. We know the stories about the first three, right? But we said they're the cabinet of the brains behind the war. The head of them is Adino Etzner. We're going, that's 1, 2, 3. Now we're going to the next three, 4, 5, and 6. Avishai Achi Yoav Ben Tzeruah. Avishai, we know him, right? Mm-hmm. He's the brother of Yoav. Who Rosh Hashlosha. He was the head of these three who went to the water drawers. So he's number 4 on the list. Now, let's hear a story about him. Besides being the head of the 3 water drawers, who got the water from Bethlehem, Orer et Chanito woke up. Now, Orer means to wake up. He woke up his spear. It's a funny expression, but it just means it didn't fall asleep. Yeah, his spear was going, right? That's what it means. Going like a nar, awake. Yes. Orer, this is Avishai, did this, his spear. Al Shlosh Me'ez Chalal, with 300 slain. I mean, he killed with one spear 300 Philistines, I suppose. V'lo Shem Bashloisha. He has a name amongst the 3. Oh. Now, which 3 is this referring to? You see, there's 2 groups of 3 here. 1, 2, or 3 who were the brains behind the wars, and the 4, 5, or 6 were the 3 water drawers. So obviously, if he's number 1 of these 3 water drawers, obviously he has a name amongst them. He's number 1. What it means, he was well known in these circles. Although he wasn't actually part of this group, he was consulted. You understand? He was well known. Mm-hmm. That's what it means. Number 4, who was number 1 of this second group, was famous amongst the top 3.
Yeah, well, even he was famous amongst David. Did he come up? He came up a bunch in the story.
Correct. Yes, he's famous in the Book of Shmuel as helping David here and helping David there. Question is, did the 3 consult him when they planned war? That's what it means. He was held in such high esteem, although he wasn't one of that group. His opinion was sought out by the group when they planned things, so they asked him his opinion. That's what it's trying to say. Velo Shem Minish Bashloisha. He had a name amongst the 3, i.e. 1, 2, and 3. Min Hashloisha, of the 3, now he's referring to 4, 5, and 6. Of the 3, meaning 4, 5, and 6, of that group, Hachi Nichbad. Now this word you've probably never had before. Hachi means the most. Right? Hachi, Kravi Hachi, that's how they say it, right? Yeah. Hachi means the most. Nichbad, he was the most respected. Ahilahem Lesar, he was like an officer amongst these 3. Of the 3 water drawers, Avishai we said that he was the head of the 3. He was like not just the head, he was like an officer. He was like their officer. But he didn't come to the 3. To which 3? You just told me he was the head of the 3. Means the other 3. Means although he was seen number 4, this number 4, he was seen in a very high esteem by his group. And he was even like appointed as a star, and he was well known amongst the first group of 3. He still never joined their group. He never became part of the cabinet, the war cabinet. but he was famous, well known enough to be consulted by them. Okay, something like that.
He doesn't mention Yoav.
Oh, that's a problem. Yov's not mentioned in the whole story. We'll see. Ubenayo ben Yehoyada. Okay, now we're going. Now he's number 5. He was actually being mentioned beforehand. He was the head of the royal guard, the slingshots and the archers.
How do you say that again in Hebrew? The slingshots and the archers?
Crazy and place.
Crazy in place.
Crazy and place. Ubenayo ben Yehoyada ben Ish Chai. Now let's hear about him. Ben Ish Chai. Now you've all heard of the Ben Ish Chai. You got it from this pasuk. You've heard of the Ben Ish Chai? Ben Ish Chai was a very great rabbi called Yosef Chaim from Baghdad. He lived about 150 years ago, and he wrote a book which he called Ben Ish Chai. He's got another book called Benayo Ben Yehoyada. He's got another book called Rav Pa'alim. All his books are based on this pasuk. Each of his books is named after a different word in this pasuk.
Wow.
Okay, so Benayo Ben Yehoyada is his commentary on the Aggadic parts of the Gemara. Ben Ish Chai is a book based on the lectures that he gave in the synagogue on Shabbos afternoon to the whole town. He would talk about the Parsha and give them halachot. Rav Pa'alim, that's I think a collection of his letters written to other rabbis. Get it? He wrote many books. So this Rabbi Ben Yehoyada is buried just outside Tzfas. You can go just as you come out of Tzfas and the road goes left towards Meron. If instead of taking the left you go straight ahead, just after like 50 yards, there's a grave. That's the grave of Benayo Ben Yehoyada. Apparently, I think the Ben Ish Chai went there once and he felt very inspired there. I don't know what the story is. Anyway, so this is number 5. That means it's number 2 of the 3 water drawers. Benayo Ben Yehoyada Ben Ish Chai. He was the man. Well, actually, we don't read it like that. We actually read Ben Ish Chai. You see, it's a Greek sieve. It's written Chai, but we actually read it Chai. Was a man of great valor. Ben Ish Chai. Or he was the son of a man of valor. It probably doesn't mean they're describing himself. He was a Ben Ish, that was his whole being, a man of valor. Rav Pa'alim means doing lots of action. Pa'al is to act. Rav Pa'alim, with great action. Mekavtse'el. Now what does that mean?
From the group of God?
Yeah, so a kibbutz is to get things together. So it could mean he was one who got people together to serve God. He like groups, let's pray together, let's say Tehillim together, whatever he do, he would make groups to serve God. Mekav Tze'el. Hu hika, now there's a story about him, we're doing number 5 so far. Hu hika, he struck at Shnei Ariel Moab, the 2 officers, it means that. But it's from the word Ari meaning a lion, so they were like very scary or ferocious or mighty officers of Moabites. So he struck 2 of them. Hu Yarad. There's a story, one story, he went down, Vahika, and struck et Ari the lion, B'toch habor, in a well, Yom HaSheleg, on the day of snow. So this Benayo Ben Yehoyada once was a snowy day. He went and there was a lion which had fallen in a well, right? And I suppose it was a dangerous lion. He went and killed the lion in the well on the snowy day. That's a story about Benayo. Okay, another story about him. As Ish Mitri, there's another story. He struck a Egyptian fellow, Ish Mar'eh, a man of appearance, which means when you saw him, you knew you were something to talk about. Wasn't just another bloke, something which was serious, ferocious appearance. Ubiyara Mitri, in the hand of the Egyptian, Chanit, was a spear. Yered, a love, a shavet. And he went down to him with a stick. Meaning, Benayo Ben went to attack this guy with a stick, but the other guy had a spear. Right, which is, I suppose, more dangerous because it can get you from a distance. And also it's got a big spike at the end of it, which you can get you with. And he stole the spear, from the hand of the Egyptian. And he killed him with his own spear. Get it? He took the spear and he killed him with it. From here, by the way, Chazal learned the meaning of gezel. There's 2 words in Hebrew to steal. Geneva and gezela. And how do you know which is which? We learn from here. Because broad light, daylight robbery, when you do something in broad daylight, it's called gezela. That's what he did over here. He was facing this guy, and you don't really steal somebody else's spear when you're fighting them, but that's what it means. To do something in broad daylight is called gezela. Whereas geneva is when you do it at night. Okay.
Wait, what's the verse?
Which one? Worse. Chazak, you see the punishment of the Torah is when you do geneva, which you steal at night, you pay double. Still during the day, only pay one.
But I thought, because at night that means it shows you at least ashamed.
That's what you taught. But Chazal, Rabbi Shimon HaNavi says the opposite. It means you see that you're ashamed, so that you see you're scared of being caught. No, he doesn't steal at night because he's ashamed. He steals at night because he doesn't want to get caught. Right? During the day, you can get caught by a policeman. Right? During the night means you're worried about caught. So the Torah says, if you're really worried about getting caught, why not worried about HaKadosh Baruch Hu seeing you? The guy doesn't during the day. It's just some guys are not worried. They don't worry about anybody.
It's not like the aspect of shame.
They're not like embarrassed of God. They're just not embarrassed of anyone. That's the sort of people they are. You're scared about being caught. Why not scared about God watching? Okay, let's back to the point. That's the story. Two stories about Benayahu ben Yehoyada. Eile Osa ben Yehoyada. These two stories. One is a story about going into striking the Philistine officers and going into the well with a lion and taking the spear off the Egyptian. Those are the stories about him, and he became the head of the royal troops. Eile Osa Benayahu ben Yehoyada. These are the things that Benayahu did. V'lo shame b'shloisha hagiborim. He's also well known amongst the three mighty men. Which three mighty men? Numbers 1, 2, and 3. Okay.
Wait, okay, yeah.
Right. Min hashloishim nichbad. Benayahu ben Yehoyada was well respected by the 30 officers who were about to list in a second. But he also didn't come into the group of 3, meaning numbers 1, 2, and 3. He never became part of their group, just like what's his name was Avishai ben Tzuriah also never became part of their group. David el Mishmatoi, and David placed him on his. Mishmata means when something you have to listen from the word shama. Means usually in modern Hebrew it means discipline. Mashmat is when you've got discipline problems or not discipline problems. It means David gave him the job of being in charge of the group of royal officers. Okay, who's number 3? Do the next one? Yes, number 3 of this group is Asael. Who's Asael? Achi Yoav is also the brother of Yoav. Now, Asael has been dead a long time. Asael was killed in the first battle between David's troops and Shaul's troops. Well, they weren't really Shaul's troops anymore because David became king after Shaul died, but they were the troops who were loyal to Shaul, who was serving under Ishbosheth, who was Shaul's son, who became the king after him. There was a battle between the two, a skirmish is a better word, right? Which happened as a result of a misunderstanding. And in that battle, Asael chased Avner, and Avner killed Asael in self-defense. So this isn't referring to now. These are the people who long time ago had been David's generals. But this Asael is not alive anymore. Okay, now we're going through the list, I think, of 30.
Wait, where was his? All right.
I think he's number 3. It's very, very confusing because it doesn't look like they say. It looks like we already started number 1 of the 30. But I think we're now starting. Elchanan ben Doidai. Beis Lechem, he was from Beis Lechem, so you can count them. He's number 1. Shama Acharodi, Eli, that's number 2. Elika Acharodi, that's number 3. Chelek Apalti, number 4, these are just names. Number 4. Ira Ben Ikesh Hatekoy, that's 5. Aviezer HaAntesi, 6. Mevunai HaChushasi, 7. Salman HaAchoichi is 8. We did it. Mahari Hanatoifasi is 9. Chele Ben Bana Hanatoifasi. 10. Itai ben Rivai, 11. Igibas ben Ebiyamin, that's where he came from. Benayahu Pirasoni, what's that? 12. Hidai Minachle Gosh.
13.
Okay.
13.
Gosh just means eruption. He came from a place where there was a valley of eruption. That's the name of the place. Okay, what are we up to now? 12?
13. Was
13 already?
Yeah,
Okay.
that was 13.
Avi Alvoin or Arvasi? 14. Az Maves HaBarchumi. 15. El Yachba HaShalavayni. 16. Now, then we get B'nai Yoshein Yehoinasa.
Yeah. Or more. than-
Now, is that one or two? B'nai, the sons of Yashain, he's Yehona's son.
Ah.
But then you've only got one. So how do you get B'nai? Eliachba HaShalvoni, B'nai Yashan, Yehona's sons. It's a weird pasuk. The sons of, who are the sons of? So it could be Eliachba HaShalvoni and Yehona's son are both sons of Yashain.
Mm-hmm.
Could be. So we still only got how many we got now? If that counts as
Six.
two.
Oh, it's
17.
17.
Okay, if
Yeah,
it counts as two, it could be that B'nai is already more than one. But let's assume we just got two. So Yachba is 16 and Yonasan is 17. Shama HaHarari, 18. Achion ben Soror HaHarari, 19. Eliphelet ben Achasbi, ben Hama'achasi. That's just telling you his father and grandfather, presume, right?
20.
Elion ben Achisayv and Agilona, that he's famous. Remember Achisayv? He was the advisor of David who turned coat and joined the forces of Avshalom.
Agiloni.
And he's from Gilo. Gilonim is from Gilo, not from the Golan, from a town called Gilo. The nun is only added because the end of the name is Galo. Hey, you can't say Agiloi. It doesn't go well. Agiloni. Now his son was Eliam. Eliam. Now it's important to remember that because we'll see later on. Eliam, he was one of David's generals. So Eliam, what number is he?
20, right?
21.
And Eliam's
Wait.
21.
Yeah.
Eliam's 21? Good. Next one. Chetzrai HaKarmeli, 22. Pari or Arabi, 23. Yigal ben Nosan, Mitzova, from a place called Sova, 24.
4.
Bonai HaGodi, 25. Selek HaAmoni, 26. Nachrai HaBe'iroisi,
7.
and he was Nosei Kilei Yoav ben Surya. We haven't mentioned Yoav, but you should know that this guy was the armor bearer. Nosei Kilei Yoav, he carried Yoav's arms. For some reason or other, Yoav wasn't mentioned. It could be because you don't need to mention the chief of staff. He's clearly one of David's generals. He's even got his own armor bearer, as you see here. But his name wasn't actually mentioned here. What number was that?
27.
Nachra Be'erosi, what was he? Got him?
Um,
Possible Lamed Zayin. Lamed
Is
Zayin.
that
the one before was
Selek
20,
HaAmoni.
this one was 25, so that's 26.
Okay, right, 26. Are you not writing the numbers?
Oh, I wrote here 24. I've been just
Okay.
doing jumps.
Okay, all right. So he's, say Selek HaAmoni is 26. Nachra Be'erosi is 27.
Yeah.
Ira HaYisri is 28. Gorev HaYisri,
29.
29. Uriah Achiti. Whoa, who's Uriah Achiti?
Achiti.
Uriah Achiti, come on, he's famous.
Hittite.
Well, yeah, but who is he?
He did something.
Come on, didn't do anything. Come on. Who was his wife?
Oh,
That's it.
the one that.
Bathsheba. Right. So this was.
Bathsheba.
So now
No,
we know.
it was Uriel.
It wasn't. Uriah.
Or Uziel.
No. Uriah. Uriah Achiti was Bathsheba's husband, who David had put at the front line and was killed in battle.
Finally.
Right. Well,
Been waiting for that story to come up with David.
no, we're not going to talk about that story because you have to hit 4 classes back in the place. You can listen to my
No,
recordings.
I know that now.
But it is mentioned over here. But it's not mentioned. It's just now we know that he was one of David's top generals. Clear. He's one of number 37 people. So the Uriah Achiti is number 30. Now, how do you get 37? Well, it's not so difficult. You've got 30 plus 3 is 6. The 3 water drawers, okay? Plus the 3 who were the brains behind the battles, right? That's 36. Now, who's the one on top? So either one on top is David. Maybe. Understand? Because obviously David's part of his army too, but they're not really David's generals. He's not his own general, right? More likely it's Yoav, who is the head of the army, or at least he was, and he's been reinstated as well by the end. And he's not mentioned, but he is mentioned by the way, but not explicitly. Okay?
It's
Wait,
not.
wait.
The last one isn't the one who's like the war room one who like plans everything out.
No, but he's still only got 36.
Oh no. Okay.
Right?
Wait, but Yo was the guy that was killing everyone.
Well, not everybody. Yo's killed a few people. He killed Avner, and he killed Avshalom, and he killed Amasa. Those are the 3 people Yoav killed. Again, we're not describing, but he's back in charge of David's army, right?
Yeah, what?
We're going to sort him out in the beginning of Malachim. We'll see where he gets what he deserves, right? But we're describing people who, some of these people have been dead a long time. Yoav's brother Asael has been dead a long time.
Yeah.
He's still included in this
Bathsheba.
number. So like I say, it could be that these are the 36 or 37 who were at the beginning, before David was even king. or the beginning of David's reign. So this is the maximum David had, and there was his top generals. Again, the three are the three brains. At the United Kingdom, there's three who were the water drawers, right? Who had a connection with that higher group, but they weren't actually part of the group. Under them, there were 30. Altogether, that's 36. How you get 37 is by adding Yoav to the number. Where it's understood that Yoav is part of David's army because he's been all the way the head of David's army all along, right from the beginning, right? And therefore, that's why his name doesn't need to be mentioned, although it was mentioned.
Like
It was mentioned, but not counted in the 30s.
because it's so obvious. Like you don't have to even say.
And we did mention him, so you can work it out.
It's not because David didn't.
No, I don't
go
think
off,
so.
That's why he didn't.
Maybe that's why they didn't mention him explicitly. I don't know. Anyway, you can work it out. That's where you get to 37. But it wasn't so straightforward. There's a lot of complicated opinions about how you get 37 out here. The way they're part of the three, they're part of this three, they're not part of that three. I did a lot of reading into it in order to make it smooth. Okay, that brings us to the end of chapter 23. We've gone along over time. But if you want, right, if you're happy, we want to finish Shmuel base in order to be able to make a Shiur on it tomorrow. So for that, we have to do the next chapter.
Yes.
So if you're okay with that, with your permission, we'll do the last chapter.
Can I just
Okay.
go?
Yeah,
I
just
need
enough.
a packet though.